This week on ICN, the stories you should have heard but didn't. Greece proves gold is the currency of last resort. Supreme Court says you have to speak up to remain silent. States borrow from the federal government to pay unemployment. Study shows most sunscreens likely accelerate skin cancer. Those stories and more next on Informed Citizen News. Hello and welcome to ICN, Informed Citizen News, June 6th, 2010. The U.S. debt is expected to grow from $13 trillion this year to almost $20 trillion by 2015, according to a Treasury Department report to Congress. If that isn't enough to scare you, then throw in that future debt projections are notoriously underestimated. Just to put it in perspective, all income taxes collected by the federal government would not be enough to cover the interest on the debt, assuming interest rates remain at their current level. If interest rates rise or our economy continues to slide, then that could spell big trouble for this country, much sooner than even doomsayers had even predicted. There was a shootout on May 20th in West Memphis, Arkansas, that left 2 police officers dead, 2 others wounded, and the alleged perpetrators killed in a bullet-ridden minivan in a Walmart parking lot. On its face, this story is about 2 cold-blooded cop killers, a father and his 16-year-old son, who apparently murdered 2 cops and later died in a blazing shootout. As with most stories, it gets more complicated under the surface. The father, Jerry Kane, and his son, Joseph, were part of a growing group of people in this country that believe that the current monetary system is unconstitutional, that gold and silver are the only real money, and that our freedoms are under attack. Jerry Kane made his living going across the country giving mortgage and debt relief seminars. To most Americans who are more interested in the latest gossip about the celebrity of the day, the Kanes' views on government, money, and debt would be considered extreme. The Kanes had made their views public, but had shown no previous history of violence. In fact, Jerry Kane's run-ins with law enforcement were relatively minor in nature, once arrested for protesting a checkpoint in New Mexico, and a few other incidents related to his financial dealings. Jerry Kane did post a video on YouTube where he stated that he may have to kill to protect himself or his property, and that he probably wouldn't stop at just one. For those Americans who have studied the current debt-based financial system, the history of the Federal Reserve, and U.S. Constitution, they will sympathize with Kane's views on many of these subjects. So what happened that day during the traffic stop? Did Kane suddenly snap when pulled over by police, even though he had no history of violence? Did the Kanes come out of their car shooting, or did it start as a normal traffic stop and escalate out of control? Once the Kanes were reported on police radio as cop killers, their fate was sealed. Details of the original traffic stop have yet to be officially released. Until then, people are left to speculate. With 2 policemen dead at an apparent routine traffic stop, the assumption is that the Kanes are cold-blooded cop killers. Since all 4 witnesses who were at the scene are dead, only a dashcam video from the police car could shed light on the deadly events of that day. Without missing a beat, Mark Potok of the Southern Poverty Law Center is out in the press acting as an expert on Jerry Kane, who he admittedly had never heard of before this incident. We will wait for the evidence before we make judgments on Jerry and Joseph Kane. Question is, will the mainstream press or the American people do the same? Here's a follow-up from a story ICN covered in April. Ex-attorney Richard Fine has been held in coercive confinement in a Los Angeles County jail for the last 14 months. Coercive confinement is where a judge demands a person to comply with an order or go to jail until they do comply. In this case, the judge ordered Mr. Fine to jail until he submits financial documents and answers the judge's questions. Mr. Fine has not been charged with a crime. He is just being held in jail on a judge's order. The update this week is that the United States Supreme Court denied hearing Mr. Fine's appeal of his indefinite detention without charge, and they provided no reason for their denial to hear the case. Mr. Fine's original case found that judges in Los Angeles County were illegally taking extra compensation from the county in violation of California state law. The state legislature quickly passed a law to make it legal for counties to pay judges. We encourage you to watch the original report of this case in our April 18th broadcast. The Federal Reserve is the self-proclaimed lender of last resort, but gold has always been the currency of last resort, and it is being proven again in Greece. As rumors of Greece's imminent default and expulsion from the Eurozone are rampant, locals in Greece are buying up gold coins. The price of gold coins in Greece has risen 50% since 2008. The Greek central bank controls the legal trade of gold coins, but that has only led to a brisk black market as the central bank cannot, or will not, keep up with demand. The events in Greece should not be a surprise to anyone, as they are no different than any other country that has experienced a currency collapse. There were 431,000 new jobs created in May. The bad news was that 90% of those were temporary workers hired by the government to conduct the census. These jobs, like other stimulus, will only last a few months. Then the economy will need another shot in the arm by the government to keep it propped up. In a nonsensical ruling, the Supreme Court decided that a person does not invoke the right to remain silent by remaining silent. The case they were ruling on involved a man accused of shooting another person. For the first 3 hours of questioning, the suspect remained silent. In the third hour, he responded to a question posed by police that was later used against him in court. Because the suspect did not verbally communicate that he wanted to remain silent, the investigators continued to question him for hours. If he had spoken up and verbally asserted his right to remain silent, says the court, then the police would have had to stop their questioning. The justices were split mostly along ideological lines where the majority was made up of conservative judges and the minority the liberals. This ruling gives the advantage to the police over the rights of the accused. The Bilderberg Group has long been the subject of conspiracy theories, but is it now going mainstream? The secretive group, which met this week at a luxury hotel south of Barcelona, Spain, has long been in the shadows. On June 1st, Daniel Estulin, author of The True Story of the Bilderberg Group, was invited to speak before the European Parliament in Brussels. He was invited by Mario Borghesio, Italy's most senior member of Parliament. Estulin reveals in his book how the web of people and organizations has become a shadow government whose top priority is to erase the sovereignty of all nation-states and supplant them with global corporate control of their economies under the surveillance of an electronic global police state. The full transcript of Mr. Estulin's speech before the EU Parliament is available in our news source links. 32 states have run out of funds to pay unemployment benefits to their people and have had to borrow money from the federal government to make up the shortfall. The state of California has borrowed the most at $6.9 billion, while Michigan has borrowed $3.9 billion and Illinois $2.2 billion. A full listing of the states that had to borrow money to pay their unemployed is available in our news source links. In a recent study released by the Environmental Working Group, most sunscreens may accelerate the growth of malignant cells and the spread of skin cancer. In their annual report to consumers on sunscreen, they say that only 39 of the 500 products they examined were considered safe and effective to use. The report cites problems with exaggerated sun protection factor, SPF numbers, the use of the hormone-disrupting chemical oxybenzone, which penetrates the skin and enters the bloodstream, as well as listing the FDA as ineffective at regulating product claims. The most alarming disclosure in this year's report is the finding that vitamin A and its derivatives used in common sunscreens may speed up the cancer that sunscreen is used to prevent. The researchers say that an effective sunscreen prevents more damage than it causes, but it wants consumers to have accurate information on the limitations of what they buy and on the potentially harmful chemicals in some of those products. The full list of the best and worst sunscreens can be found on the Environmental Working Group's searchable database. You can access it in our news source links. Thanks for watching. From all of us at Informed Citizen News, we'll see you next week.